will be a game analyst. Mark and I had been talking off the air for about a year about different things going on in your life, and you have done a lot of commentary. I put you on my podcast all the time. You're brilliant, and now you're doing the game analyst stuff. By the way, that's a whole different world. You're gritting your teeth over there. You ready for the challenge?
I am excited. Thank you, one, for having me. A lot of people to thank, but I'm thrilled that I think, being at ESPN for the first couple of years doing studio has really prepared me for this. But I've still been, involved with NFL stuff and wanting to call games, wanting to get back into that stadium feel. And, I'm stoked about fans being back hopefully this season. So this is going to be an incredible opportunity. But the people here at Fox who've welcomed me like family already, it's just my first day, but I want to make sure I get all these people. So Brad Zager, Whit Album, Jacob Ullman, Eric Shanks, and Charlie Dixon, thank you guys for welcoming me in, and I'm excited about the partnership.
Those guys have all tried to fire me at different times. I wouldn't.
Well, that was uncomfortable.
So let's start with this. The quarterback position in New York. So you actually won your first 3 games as a Jet. Then you got to the AFC Championship in your first couple of years. You beat Tom Brady, by the way, who's still playing. That's another story. Zach Wilson comes in. Zach Wilson, you sent me a story this morning. It's a fascinating story. I did not know this. Zach Wilson's uncle is the creator of JetBlue.
Right. So
he comes from a moneyed family.
Yeah.
He comes from, a pretty storied program out west in BYU. But firsthand, you had success. You and Rex Ryan were winning games. Okay, that roster was good. That was a good roster. This is not as good a roster. Give me a sense of, he starts 0-3. The newspapers, the tabloids, the talk radio. Did it affect you?
Listen, it's easy to say like, no, you're above that. You don't pay attention. But every time you go into a press conference, which is, at least twice a week as the quarterback in New York, they got to debrief you on what's out there, right? So even if you don't watch TV and you don't read the newspaper, I would go talk to our PR guy, Bruce, and he would have to say, hey, they're talking about this, this, and this, blah, 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 blah. Your GQ photo shoot, your, game against so-and-so. They're going to ask about the back page of the Daily News that says, Broadway schmo on it after I throw 5 interceptions against the Bills. And the week before it was the next Joe Namath. And, so you're just constantly dealing with a sensationalized media market. With a superlative media market, right? It's either best or worst, and there's no middle ground. There's no 8-8 doesn't exist. Like, it doesn't matter. That might as well be 0-16, 0-17, right? Right. So that's the world he's stepping into, and I think you brought up one of the best points is the roster isn't nearly as close to where we were my rookie year. And, I've been very brutally honest about this, but listen, we had to win games my rookie year in spite of the quarterback, in spite of me, okay? Because I was still trying to figure stuff out. We had a great defense, great special teams. It was Revis, it was Bart Scott, it was Brad Smith, all these guys that would make plays to make up for my, insufficiency at the time, my ineptitude at the time.
Right.
And then, you start building around the quarterback the second year. You bring in more offensive talent, Santonio Holmes, Braylon Edwards. So we were starting on the right track, and we had success. And you're learning lessons that should have lost you a game, but you're winning, right? And so that was, just a 3-0 start, 0-3. Then I'm on the sidelines of, the Oakland game, and I couldn't eat before the game because I was so anxious.
Well, that was a great story. So you literally couldn't eat before the game because it was your first big game. Your family was all there.
Oh, yeah.
You were going to throw up before the game. You could not eat. And then 4 hours later at the end of the bench, you went to a trainer and said, could you get me a hot dog?
I'm eating a hot dog. So to say it doesn't affect you is, you got to be part cyborg or something. But it was, it's just a big time media market. And so with somebody like Zach, because of the roster, you gotta set the right expectations. And this is on the Jets organization, their PR, and on the players on what they're saying, what's leaking out to the media, because that team needs to stay together. They're a young team. They got to grow up like one of those young baseball teams from T-ball all the way to Pony League and all that. And then after a couple years, cool. These guys know what to do. It's, nonverbal communication. We know what's going on. But this needs time to marinate. And in a town like that, you don't get a lot of time to marinate. So like you said, if it's an 0-3 start, it could be rough. But, I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth here, but I think he's got some things in place. Somebody who's been there, who's seen it with a ton of different quarterbacks, and Greg Knapp as his quarterback coach. I think Coach Sala will be the right kind of mentality, self-deprecating in a way. I saw an article about, the first time the team gets together and they go to break down and they're waiting for the head coach to go, give the breakdown speech and, hey, Jets on 3 or whatever. And he's kind of standing in the crowd with everybody kind of waiting for the head coach. And he's like, oh, yeah, that's me. I got to go do that. So I think he's the right kind of guy. I think people are just going to they're just going to expect a lot right away. And that's the way New York is.
So I want to transition into another quarterback story. Adam Schefter's tied in. You and I both work with him, and Schefter saying basically, Aaron, it goes much deeper than money. This is not a money issue. Football is very unique. Is that the NBA has always been a story league, and it's a big personality league. You can have noise around your team; it doesn't matter that much. In the NFL, you have to have a choreography. You're memorizing a playbook. Any noise, anybody going off doing their own thing, and you get sacked or they run the wrong route off the tree. And I look at Green Bay, and I think to myself, Aaron, when he's happy, can be a little condescending. I've always said, he's a little California cool. He's really smart. He knows it. Green Bay's always been kind of a weird fit for a guy that could be a model, a Hall of Fame. It's a weird fit. He always feels like the Rams quarterback playing in Green Bay, right?
Sure.
And so now he's gone public. Let me just ask you, how would it not affect – doesn't it just automatically create tension in the room? How do you not address it? How do you address it?
As the head coach, I wouldn't want to have to touch that with a 10-foot ball. That is just the weirdest situation going into training camp, because during training camp, especially if you're going to start grooming this young quarterback in Jordan Love, you have to start putting him in positions to be successful in team meetings and on the field, right? Like, you show highlights on purpose to energize the guys, to remind them hey, this is our guy. So are you going to start doing that with Aaron kind of floating out there? How do you even go about that situation? I'm not envious of his position. The other thing, when you look at Rodgers, he's got options now. And if I'm a detective working this case, is he going back? Is he, going to hold out? I'm just looking at facts, things that I can connect some dots on. Dave Dunn, same agent for Carson Palmer. Carson Palmer sat out of Cincy. Carson Palmer made a lot of money before he decided to sit out for Cincy. Carson Palmer had other options. He said, hey, I'll go do something else. The guy lives in Idaho now. He's just kind of off the grid. Yeah, and very similar to Aaron. They had been slighted by their organization. They felt, there were issues philosophically, principles that they don't agree on. Those are big time things, right? These are foundational, relational issues, okay?
Yeah.
So if you're off on those, why go back? And plus, did you see the guy play golf the other day? The guy might make a run at the PGA Tour. Did you see him on Jeopardy? He's got options, right? So it's not the end of the world. Football isn't the only thing going with Aaron Rodgers. So if that's not going to work, he's drawn a line in the sand. Good luck. Let me know when you guys are ready to change, kind of thing.
Mark, you were obviously a very great high school player, high school All-American. You were all Pac-12 and had a lot of success. Big Ben is almost transformational. There never been a quarterback until Cam Newton that looked like Big Ben. He was 6'6". He had a huge arm. Defenders would bounce off him.
Oh, yeah.
As great as an athlete as you were, defenders aren't bouncing off you. You're bouncing to the ground, right? You're like a normal human. So Big Ben, and I've heard this for years, and I just kind of want your take here. And I've heard this respectfully, that his off seasons are a lot of camping, time with the kid. He's not Brady.
Right.
And now I see a story. Oh, he is working out